Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydnee McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
Hello, sisters. Greetings and welcome.
Good day.
Hello.
How are you both?
Doing good.
Doing well?
Doing good. Doing well.
Taylor?
I'm a little disturbed right now.
Why are you
Why
disturbed?
is that?
Well, I think, Sydnee, I just learned something about you that makes me question everything about our relationship as sisters.
All right, we'll lead into this with a story for everyone to give some background as to why this topic came
I don't know
up.
why this is so bad, but go ahead.
I just can't. I can't move past it. Just get
and everyone
give
who
them some
listens to
background
our
understanding
show,
of this, Riley.
Yeah. Everyone who listens to our show is going to agree with Taylor and I. So it's Spirit Week at my school this week because homecoming is this weekend, and tomorrow is Character Day. The day this episode goes up is Character Day, and I was trying to come up with a costume idea for my boyfriend and I, and we decided to dress as Lola Bunny and Bugs Bunny from Space Jam, which is a great costume idea. And I told Sydnee this, and she said, "Oh, I've never seen Space Jam before, but that's a cute costume."
Well, I'm aware of Bugs Bunny, and I bet Lola Bunny is a girl one.
Yeah, but you've never seen Space Jam.
I've never seen Space Jam.
I mean, like it's a basketball cartoon.
It is
right?
not entirely cartoon, Sydnee. Michael Jordan is in it.
As if you could encapsulate Space Jam just like, oh, it's a basketball cartoon. There are aliens, and like the world is at threat. There are beautiful songs.
Michael Jordan is in it.
Who sings songs? Does Michael Jordan sing a song?
No, I mean it's not like a musical, but like the soundtrack is good. That one song that everybody likes is good.
What song does everybody like that's in Space Jam?
The one, Sydney.
I
don't know. What
I
to say.
believe I could fly.
That
I
one?
believe I could touch the
Yeah, you're
sky.
right.
That's the song. Wait.
Think about it every night and day.
I Believe I Can Fly is the song you were referencing as the one everybody loves.
Nobody doesn't love that song. You can't tell me that song doesn't come on in a bar and everyone's like, yeah.
Hasn't its moment passed?
It never will pass.
No.
Riley,
No.
you would agree?
Yes.
As a teen
Sydney, it is
today
2017, and for Spirit Week, I am dressing as Lola Bunny from Space Jam. No, its time has not passed.
Will anyone know who you are?
Yes. The front of my jersey says Toon Squad, and the back of it says Lola.
That's pretty straightforward.
And I have bunny ears.
Well, but here's the thing. If you walked up to me wearing that, I wouldn't know who you were.
Yeah, you're the one person on this planet who'd be like, duh, I've never seen Space Jam before.
I would be polite. I would be very polite about it, and I wouldn't say I don't know who you are. I would probably laugh uncomfortably and say, "Oh, that's cute," because that's what I usually say when I don't get Halloween costumes.
Yeah, that's how I knew you hadn't seen it. When you looked at it and went, oh. And I just thought, she hasn't seen Space Jam. And you're like, I haven't seen Space Jam. And I was like, well, she's not my sister anymore.
It's just, how much educational value does this film have? How much about life would I
Sydney?
learn? How
Hey,
would
Sydney,
I grow emotionally?
You love the movie Grease 2. How much does
Grease
that give
2
you?
is a wonderful film with amazing music and outstanding performances.
Space Jam is an amazing movie with wonderful music and outstanding performances.
It has Bill Murray.
Yeah.
You have Bugs Bunny, Michael Jordan, and Bill Murray, and space, and basketball.
And a lady bunny who's super good at basketball.
Well, you didn't say it had Bill Murray initially.
We shouldn't have had to.
Yeah, well, does your husband know this? I thought this was like a thing. Everybody has to see Space Jam to be in this family. I don't know you. What else haven't you seen?
Sydney, you can go. Taylor and I are going to continue this podcast because we're the only sisters here now.
Like important tune-based media that you have at Tiny Toons?
No, I've seen Tiny Toons, obviously.
Rescue Rangers?
Well, of course. I mean, I never, I've always been kind of embarrassed because I've never seen Citizen Kane. Is this on that level?
I've never seen Citizen Kane. Who knows?
See, I think we should all be much more embarrassed about that than we should about the fact that I haven't seen Space Jam.
No,
I think you're trying to avoid the fact that you haven't seen Space Jam.
I feel like in my circles of society, it is far more offensive to have not seen Space Jam than Citizen Kane.
Well, doctors don't watch movies ever, so nobody cares. I know that I say that jokingly, but really, like all I talk about with my work friends are medicine.
I mean, I don't know. That one biology class I took, they made me watch Outbreak twice, so I thought that movies were really essential in medicine.
No, one of my best friends at work will still tell you that her favorite movie is Pretty Woman because it was like the last movie she saw. Yeah. So sorry, I'll watch Space Jam.
Please do, because our costumes are going to be adorable, and you're not going to get it.
Okay. Well, you take pictures so that I can retroactively appreciate them.
I'm going to show up to your house the morning before school and make you look at our costumes and appreciate them, which means tonight you have to watch the movie Space Jam.
Well, and you have a small child. Like, Sid, what movies? You've seen the Troll movie. You've seen
like 85 times.
the Smurf movie. Like, you up with all the cool new movies.
I've seen Captain Underpants.
I wouldn't classify that as a cool new movie.
Oh, well,
I watched that also in a hotel room, and I wouldn't say it's cool or
A lot
new.
of bathroom humor in there. A lot of bathroom
Look at
humor.
the name of it, Sid.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of knew the package you were getting there.
No, I don't particularly enjoy bathroom humor. That's not my thing. And I will say, the Smurf movie left much to be desired, but the Troll movie, now that's fine. That's a fine film.
Well, you know what? Space Jam is better than the Trolls movie. I said it.
I think Charlie would
I
disagree.
would agree with that. No, I would agree with that. I was also quite a fan of the Trolls movie, but
We have finally reached the
airplane twice.
We have finally reached a 2/3 majority in this podcast.
That's the one thing we can recommend to you.
So, everybody watch the Trolls movie, and I'll watch Space Jam.
Thank God.
We've settled
Everybody yell at Sydney on the internet for not having seen
Please.
Space Jam.
that. I'm very sorry. I will watch Space Jam at some point. I'm not going to guarantee you I will.
She says
tonight.
at some point.
You can watch it with your daughter. Don't let her grow up the way you did.
I don't know if she'll like your old school cartoons.
Sydney, it's Looney Tunes.
I know she's never seen any
It's
Looney
timeless.
Tunes. She's never seen. She
Bugs
doesn't know
Bunny.
who Bugs Bunny is.
She'd love Lola Bunny.
I'm just saying. You know, kids today with their Daniel Tigers and their Luna Petunias.
She needs to be exposed.
So okay, I'm very sorry. I'll watch Space Jam.
Thank you.
Can we move past the fact that I
Yes,
haven't
now
seen
that we've
Space
spent
Jam?
8 minutes yelling at you for not watching Space Jam, yes, we can move on.
Okay, you've convinced me to watch it, not because I now think it is a quality film, but because I don't want you to yell at me anymore.
That works.
Also works.
Wait, is that how we solve problems? Awesome. I will remember that.
Just take it as a win and move on.
Speaking of moving on.
That was a good transition. So, Riley, you came up with something for us to talk about this week.
I did.
Yeah. So, do you want to explain?
Well, okay. I was just doing something new here. All right.
Well, I thought it was your topic. You could kind of let people know.
I will say Mom helped me out with this one. This was
Okay.
not like a Rilo original. I kind of modified it. But we were talking about things we could do for our show, and Mom said something about letting go. And I was thinking, like, well, I don't know if that's different. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, if you let go of friends or exes in relationships or grudges.
If you let go of holding in your secret ice powers that have been
Right.
tormenting you since you were a
Right.
little girl. And
If you're Elsa,
Yeah.
you go out into the
Man.
wilderness and build an ice
and
castle.
let it go.
Right.
Dude, low-hanging fruit, Sid. Like, that was
Sorry.
a joke we all knew was right there, and I thought we were all going to be professionals and avoid it. You went
I was
for it.
avoiding it.
I was going to, too.
But thank
I'll
you,
never
Sydney.
apologize for frozen humor.
Okay.
At
I
least
guess
don't
you
sing
could
the
say
song.
that was a coldly received joke.
Wow. You are your father's daughter.
Anyways, now that's over.
Sid, just chill out with those Frozen references, Sid.
Okay,
Take a chill pill.
so letting go.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! That was a Mr. Freeze thing. Just go on.
But trying to distract everyone that's listening to our show from the jokes we all just made. letting go of people, especially, I if you think about it, has become a lot different because now we have social media, and we've talked about before when we're talking about relationships, you're always connected to everyone all the time. There's no like isolation from anything with social media and texting and technology, and that applies like in a really intense way when you're talking about letting go of people, because they're always there and they can always be looking at you or seeing what you're doing, or then you get blocked by people, and then it's like becomes subtweeting and online.
And I think it is a different animal, like when you talk about letting go of relationships, whether they be romantic or friendships, as a teenager as opposed to when you're an adult. Because I mean, outside of as an adult, obviously there are relationships you are forced to maintain out of necessity for your job or whatever. So sometimes being an adult means you don't have the freedom of letting someone go because you're going to see them the next day at work. So you should probably just find a way to live with them. But I mean, it's the truth. But definitely
I blocked you from my life. Yeah, but you also work right next to me, so
I mean, but like we interact on a daily basis out of necessity. So
I need you to sign this.
But with friendships, as an adult, it's so much easier because if you have like a bad run-in with a friend or just something that isn't working out, or a relationship that kind of falls apart, it's so much easier to like go your separate ways and just both silently agree like this didn't work and move on and not talk, because unless you I guess work together or something. I mean, you don't necessarily have to see each other every day. You don't necessarily have to, it's not as big, but when you're a teenager, assuming, especially if you either go to the same school or you're in the same activities,
you see them every day still.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you have an argument with someone one day and you decide like, I'm not talking to this person anymore. I'm done with this person. I don't want to be their friend anymore. And then you show up to school the next day and they're right there at the same lunch table as you are. And you have to stay connected to them in a way because especially living in such a small place as we do and growing up where you all did, where I am, you have the same group of friends and group of people that you were with from elementary school on. So you're kind of with that same group of people. So everyone is kind of a part of the same overall group. So if you're mad with one person or you decide you don't want to be associated with one person anymore, it either takes you away from the whole group or you just have to deal with it and like continue to associate with this person.
Should we decide, is it okay to let people go? I mean, obviously, and when we're talking about relationships, like romantic relationships, if it's not working out, of course.
Yeah.
But friendships, is it okay to just...
I think so.
Is it? I mean, I'm not saying it isn't, but is it okay to, like, as a teenager, say, you know what, this isn't working anymore?
I mean, there have definitely been friends I've had that I started out high school with that at this point I don't have anymore. Or they've done certain things and I've just been like, you know what? This is not the kind of person that I want to be around anymore. Or they'll do something to me. Or they'll say something like not very nice to me. And I'm just like, you know what? This is done. I don't really have any desire to be friends with you anymore. Like, I'll be polite to you if I see you in the hallway or we have to do something in class together or we have to be at the same gathering of people, like a party. But I'm not going to go out of my way to be anything more than an acquaintance.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question because for me personally, I never had any problem with that. If I felt like somebody wasn't healthy for me to be around, was not conducive to my happiness, I had no problem with moving forward. But I am not going to pretend like I should give advice in that arena because I tend to be very much, I hold grudges and I never let go. And once you burn me, that's it forever, which is not, Riley, I will tell you, is not always conducive to happiness either. No. So
yeah, it's like
don't model that behavior. I am sorry that I am that way. I seek to change it as an adult. I fail most of the time, but I recognize it at least.
Basically, Lily from How I Met Your Mother, you give that look to people and they just spontaneously combust.
And that's it forever.
Yeah,
that's
forever.
It. Yeah.
I could say from the opposite end of that, I never had a lot of people in my young life, and really in my adult life, people that I would call friends. And when one would, for whatever reason, like anything would go wrong, I I admire in both of you at that age the ability to say, well, this isn't good for me. I'm going to walk away. Because I think I don't think I'm alone in this reaction. When something goes wrong, your first response is, oh, this is me. It's me. What about me can I change to make this work? Like,
yeah.
I think it takes a lot of awareness of self to be able to sort of make that distinction of, oh, you're bad for me, not this is going bad because of me, probably me. What can I change?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it gets even harder. As you get older, it's still a problem, but especially when you're young, if it's not that either person necessarily is bad for the other one as much as it's just not a good relationship. You know, it's not either person's fault necessarily. It's just not a healthy relationship. You know, you're just too different or you're too alike or whatever it is. Like, to be able to recognize that and move on, I think that's very difficult because it's so much easier to be able to blame somebody. Either I screwed up or you screwed up, but to have to get to the point where you're like, nobody's bad. We're just not supposed to be whatever, together, friends, whatever. That's a really mature place to get to. That's hard.
Yeah. I think, I think that was late in my 20s that I started not, like, assuming that everything that went wrong in any friendship or relationship was probably me. Like, oh, maybe it was, like, just the thing didn't work. Maybe that's that.
And I'd say that kind of, like, coming to a realization that sometimes people just don't work together doesn't ever happen. I don't want to say ever. I'd say rarely ever happens in high school, just because when you have, like, group messages full of people and you're sending screenshots of texts, or you're with a bunch of friends and they're telling you what to say, it tends to blow things out of proportion and make things a lot bigger deal than they are, because teenagers love drama. Like, you know, they like people fighting and not liking each other, and they like picking sides and things happening to make things more interesting. And I don't think it's easy for teenagers to be able to handle things in a mature and not dramatic fashion. So it's usually based out of, like, one thing that someone said turns into an entire argument, turns into two sides of people who now aren't friends anymore, which means a lot of friendships are broken and no conversation is ever had about why the friendships are over. They just kind of happen.
Well, and I think that, too, when you talk about things like texting and screenshotting texts and sending them to each other, what that also opens it up to is, one, I think the drama stays around longer. It's harder for the drama to die because other people are not just told about it, but they're given, like, a firsthand view. Like, they get to be spectators of the drama directly. Whereas this may have been a private conversation that took place between me and one other person on the phone or in person before. Now, since everything is texted, it's all recorded for posterity. And either person is free to share that with whoever they want to make the other person look bad. And it also allows for more collateral damage, I think, because if in that disagreement someone else gets thrown into it, it's not private. That person's going to find out. And you can do a lot more harm that way with those conversations.
I've honestly kept messages around before with people who, like, I've had disagreements with, or who have done not nice things to me and have kind of had an over text argument, which I will admit, like, I hate saying this because it's such a stereotype of like the internet generation where you can have conversations over text that you can't have in person. Like, that's really true. It's really easy to say something to someone over text that you would not say to their face. There are a lot of times where I have stood up for myself or told someone that something they did was not good that I would never have the guts to say to their face. But I've kept them around because if someone will go and say that I said this one thing or I made this thing up, they never said that. But it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you did. Like, I have text to prove it.
See, that's, I don't know. I just feel like arguments when you have arguments face to face, things can be said that you wouldn't want written down and repeated from both parties. The fact that you guys have these things that you can save and show, it's like you'll say something in the heat of the moment that, given time to process, you wouldn't say. But because that document exists, it's like I feel like it just exacerbates the problem. Like that, I won't have serious conversations on text messages. Like it's either like silly emojis and like meet me here at this time, or it's nothing. Because for that reason, like that just seems like you can cling to something said in the heat of the moment that then just is around forever.
I think you're right. I think that's exactly true, because to say, well, then, you should measure your words better and be careful what you say. Well, of course, we all should. Yeah. And we that's true whether you're speaking in person, on the phone, or in a text. That's always true. But we're all human, too. And so we're going to say things we wish we wouldn't have. We're going to text things that are mean and in retrospect we regret. Of course we are. Like, nobody is going to go through life and never once do that. So once you put it in a text that can be screenshotted. Anyway, once it's saved there and everyone can see it, that is you now,
right?
It labels you when really you're no different than anybody else. We all say things that we don't mean and we shouldn't say, and if you say it person to person, you're allowed to go back later and say, I'm so sorry I said that. That was really crappy, and I didn't mean it, and there's no excuse for it, and I'm sorry. But once it's there in a text, it's like you can't escape it. You have to live with it on you. And I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that, especially as a teenager, you're going to say lots of stuff that you look back and go, why did I say that?
Yeah.
I don't.
Even when I'm not arguing with people, I'm just having like normal conversations with people. When I get bored, I'll go back and read all my old texts, and I'm like, why would I ever say anything like that? That's bad.
And you shouldn't have to carry around the weight of that forever. I mean, I would, like, some of the stuff that, like, I wrote personally in my journal and things when I was a teenager, if I had to walk around with, like, people having that on their phones to pull out anytime they wanted to, as like, here's an example of Sydnee, that would be humiliating for me.
Yeah, I kept a live journal for most of, like, latter half of high school and then into college. And at some point, I just deleted it all. And I was talking to a friend about LiveJournal kind of recently, and they're like, man, wouldn't you love to see that stuff? I'm like, no, absolutely not. And I hope that's not traceable. I hope that's not easy to, like, pull up from the depths of the internet garbage, because I that was out there in the public. That's terrible. Yeah. Please don't let that exist nowhere.
Oh, and I will tell you that happens to me sometimes. I mean, I've only had Facebook since I've been in, I think I got it when I was in med school, so largely my adult-ish life. And I still sometimes will get like those little on this day from 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever. And I'll look at my status, and it's not bad. I didn't say anything like mean or horrible or something that I'm like, oh, I've got to get this off the internet. But I feel so stupid when I read it. Like, why did I say that? Oh, that's awful. Like, oh, I just feel like silly about it. And I mean, I'll see that from my adult life. Like, why did I feel like anybody wanted to know that?
Dude, I think that about everything I said yesterday on like a daily basis. I don't want a record. Like 5 minutes after something comes out of my mouth, I'm like, that was the stupidest thing I ever said. I don't want to know what else is back there.
I've started trying to do something to become a better haver of discustions, communicator, discussioner.
I think communicator.
No, discussioner.
I want to be better at discussions. I want to be a good discussioner.
I want to be a good discussioner. But
communicationer.
Well, let's start here. Communicator.
Okay, I said communicator.
I know.
So, get off my butt. But I realize that it's not good to have conversations over text that are important. So, like, if I'll get upset about something with someone or feel like I need to talk to someone about something important that has happened to me, I will, like, tell them, like, hey, can we talk? Or, like, if something happens and it happens over text, or, like, something is said that upsets me, I just don't respond, and I'm like, all right, call me when you get a minute. Like, if you can't see me face to face right now, that's fine. But having a phone conversation, at least you're talking to someone, and there's no record of it ever existing.
I think that's a very wise decision, because you'll say things that actually are helpful in resolving the issue on the phone, whereas sometimes text messaging lends it, because there's no rush to respond. because you can take your time to formulate your response.
Yeah.
It lends itself to like composing the perfect like witty retort as opposed to saying something honest.
Yeah. And it leads to overthinking when you say something to someone and they don't respond for 20 minutes. It's like, oh man. Oh,
Yeah.
God, what did I do?
Well, and I think that this kind of goes into, we've talked about it before, but like the rise of internet bullying. It's so much easier to say something really bad in a text message or in a foreign, in that detached where you're not looking at the person. You're not saying something horrible to a person and see their, their gut level reaction to it. That distance, I think, can be very, it's kind of a combination of two terrible things. You can say things that are way crappier, and there's a document of existing. It's like,
Exactly.
it's two bad things. Whether you're looking at somebody and you're going to call them a big old dumbo, you're going to have to see them respond to that. So you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Next time I get in an argument with someone, I'm going to call them a big old dumbo.
Don't
You
call
big
them.
old dumbo.
And part of
That's as mean as I get.
no, but this is important too, because part of how we like gain emotional intelligence isn't just like our parents telling us or watching Daniel Tiger. It's part of it is doing things and seeing how it affects other people and realizing on your own, I could have done that better. I wish I wouldn't have said that. Oh, that, you know what? I don't like the way I feel now because of that.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds very basic, but even as a teenager, even though you're using your higher brain, and you're not a toddler, you're still learning those things. You're still figuring out like, that was what I just did. That was too much. That was damaging. I regret that. I'm going to try to do better next time. I'm not going to do that again. And text messaging prohibits you from learning those lessons.
Yeah.
You can't gain emotional intelligence from texting.
Right.
So I don't know. It stunts your growth in a way if you rely on it too much. I don't mean all texting. I think
Right.
texting is very practical. But I think if that's the way you try to form or end relationships, it could be very dangerous.
Yeah. I think as well as altering the way we respond to events, it also kind of alters the way that we think about our relationships and how long we carry out our relationships. Like almost not even texting necessarily, but social media and the existence of an online presence kind of puts a pressure on you and the sense of always being connected to everyone else to continue on with relationships that aren't necessarily good for you. Like friendships, because it's a part of your friend group, so it's going to mess everything up, make things awkward, so I'll just keep dealing with this person who's been really crappy to me. Or staying in a relationship with someone who's not necessarily for you, or things aren't working, or is not good for you, because it's your relationship is not just between the two of you, it's between like the two of you and everyone online and all of your friends and all of their friends.
All right.
Are there rules for I mean, I know there aren't rules, but you know what I mean. Unofficial mores, unofficial rules, where if you do end a friendship, end a relationship, out of necessity, or do you block them on Twitter, block them on Facebook, end all online communication? Or are you required, on the flip side, to continue that, to continue the charade that, oh, we're fine, even if maybe like it was really bad or one person really hurt the other, or
I think it's kind of like both an individual thing, and it depends on the situation. I know for me, like romantic relationships especially, you kind of want to block that person or unfollow that person. Maybe just unfollow them, just so you don't have to see what they're posting, like if they start posting things with another person. But when it comes to like friendships and stuff, I honestly think it depends on how it ends. 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna say like 9.8 times out of 10 in high school, you're not going to end a friendship with someone on an okay note. Like you're not going to end your friendship and immediately the next day be like, all right, we're fine, we're not mad, this is fine. It's probably going to be you block each other and you wait several months and people ask you why you all aren't friends anymore, and then like the next school year you're like, hey, let's be cool with each other, so you unblock each other on Instagram, but like you don't actually talk to each other anymore and you aren't friends anymore. But it kind of shows everyone that, hey, we don't hate each other now because I followed her back on Instagram and we're not blocked anymore.
You're keeping up appearances.
That's such a weird social tango. I mean,
and we didn't have to do anything quite like that. No. I wouldn't say.
Well, but like I feel like your generation has it so much worse. I mean, I even think like being an adult and like ending a relationship, like in college, it's like, you know, you break up with somebody, you just don't want to run into them. You just avoid the places they go. You have that sort of respectful understanding of like, okay, I won't go to these parties. You don't come to these parties that are my friends. Like, fine.
Right.
And you just try to like not see them. It makes it easier. But like now, like being an adult and like, oh wait, oh no, that's your Twitter and your Instagram and your Facebook and like all this stuff. But like then there's going to be your friends that are posting things that maybe you're going to be in their stuff. It's like a nightmare.
I think you're exactly right, because I will say that while it was easier to kind of separate yourself from somebody back before, you know, all of social media, because you just didn't hang out with them. And as long as the lunch tables were big enough, you could still sit in the same place, just sit at opposite ends, you know? I mean, it didn't have to change everything, but the idea that when two people are, especially like if we talk about friends, two friends who no longer become friends
I thought
within
you
a
meant
group.
Friends, a TV show for a second, but
No, no, like you know, actual friends.
right.
But if they are no longer friends, but they're within the same group, that kind of causing sides, or even worse than sides, everybody takes one side, and the other person is just completely cut off from the group. That's always happened. I mean, that's not a new concept. I think you always get that kind of, it's almost like a pack kind of thing. Like, well, we've cut you out of the pack. You're on your own now.
Yeah, I wasn't on my own, but a large group of quote unquote friends for the past few years, and one of them got mad at another one, and then it was like, well, I'm friends with this person and I'm not that close with this person, so I'm just going to hang out with this person. And it was like, well, why aren't you hanging out with all of us? And then now this year, the half of that friend group sits together and the other half sits with me where I sit, and it wasn't because of me at all. It was something totally unrelated, but it's just like you kind of have to decide. I can be friends with people in both of these groups, but I can't obviously sit in two places at once at lunch. That's such a silly thing. We talk about sitting somewhere at lunch, but it really does define so much of what you do in high school.
No, I mean, we've talked about it before, the where you sit at lunch, or having a place to sit at lunch, as much as like I look back now and I think as an adult, I just wish I had time to have lunch most days. I would be thrilled if I could sit alone in my office and eat a sandwich and not be interrupted by anybody for 10 minutes. That would be heaven for me. And so when I think about being upset because I didn't have people to eat my designated lunchtime with, it feels silly now. But at the time, no, it's hugely important. It sounds small, but it's not, because most of your school day is like scheduled. Like you have to go places.
Right.
Here's the class you're supposed to be at. This is what you're supposed to be doing now. Lunch is free form. Lunch is up to you. So lunch is where you make your statement as to whether you're an outcast or you have friends. And while being an outcast, being your own person, being independent, being a lone wolf, I think now as an adult, I think that's cool. You're an individual. You're your own person. It doesn't feel cool when you're a teenager. Well, I mean, I've been there. It doesn't feel cool when you're hiding in the bathroom eating lunch because you don't want people to see that you don't have anybody to eat with. You know, it's a different perspective. And there's no way as a teenager when you're in it, you're going to be able to say, well, I don't have anybody to sit with today, but that's just because I'm different and I'm proud of it. And I'm going to say, no, I mean, very few people are going to be able to see the future enough and feel it enough to feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I admire the ones who can. Let me say that. I admire you if you can, because I never was that person.
Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, we've talked about all these different ways that, like, instead of just, you know, you kind of cut the friend group in half, or like somebody gets kind of ousted, unfortunately, and it hurts at school, but then you go home and you could escape it. I mean, that's what I think. Like back, especially in middle school when things were really rough for me, school sucked. I hated being there. I was miserable because I had nobody, I had nothing. It was like survive. I hoped people weren't being on the offense. I hope people weren't coming and like being aggressively hateful to me. And then I've counted it as a good day, because there were not times where I felt like people were being welcoming or loving, but I had home. And once I got home, I was with my family. we were already by then doing theater, so I could go to theater rehearsal and have my theater friends. And so I had like all this loving outside of school time that I think is why I got through it. And I didn't have Twitter, and I didn't have Facebook, and I didn't have any of that, so it made it all okay. I wonder if I had had all that, I don't know, would I have been more likely to stay in toxic friendships? Do you think people maintain relationships now, romantic even relationships, that they really don't want to be in because of all of what will happen? I mean, their whole life will change.
I definitely do. I mean, you even have now people who you don't even know who will say bad things about you and talk badly about you and post mean things about you on their spam accounts or on their Twitters and subtweet about you because you did something to their friend, even though you didn't really do something to their friend, because everything is so connected. I mean, it's like I have people I don't even know who I've never had a conversation with before who don't like me because of something they heard I said and because of something like they saw online and assumed was about them, or something that I was at a party and they weren't invited, or I mean all sorts of things. And it's
even other
almost,
schools.
And it's almost easier to just stay with people who you've been with and not try to stand up for yourself or say there are problems, because once you do, you have a whole herd of people coming for you and like blocking you on social media and posting mean things about you and telling everyone about you and sending screenshots of your text to people and trying to embarrass you or make you seem like a bad person.
I mean, that, like, to me, the word of the day in high school was always like self-preservation. And that was fairly simple, like what Sydnee was saying. I mean, you kind of just like keep your head down during the day. That one or two times that someone will actively go out of their way to make you feel bad, you just ignore it. You don't respond.
Right.
You don't engage. But the amount of effort for just basic self-preservation for you guys, like ignoring all of that, like to not be like drawn into either, trying to get people to just stop, which seems like what you're saying, staying in these relationships, just if for nothing else, to spare yourself the pain of having to see that stuff. Like, that just seems like it would take so much more effort just to not have, like, daily judgment coming into your life. That's terrible.
Yeah, I can't imagine that level of pressure, especially not being able to escape it when I left school.
Yeah, we've talked about before finding friends who you don't really count as friends but count as acquaintances, because it's easier to have some group of people to say is your group of people in high school, so you're not completely alone, so that you have someone to sit with at lunch, so that you have someone to hang out with at football games or go to dances with. I think that applies to social media and how we behave as well, because I mean, that's even more. It's not just while you're at school, it's while you're at home, and it's while you're with your family, and it's while you're on trips or you're in like a completely different area.
So what you're saying is basically every moment of every day is now the lunchroom for you guys. It's social currency. It's who's liking your pictures. It's who's, tweeting at you. It's who's adding you.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare. Every moment is being judged by who accepts you socially.
And there are people, scary to think about, it's happened to me before, talking about you online who you don't even know are talking about you online, because you can't see their accounts. So there are conversations being had about you online that you don't even know are happening by people that you don't even know in person.
Which I think what's hard about that is because even when, I am sure when I was a teenager, there were people who were having conversations about me that I didn't know about.
Right.
But they were having conversations like in their parents' basement while they, ate Doritos and talked about how they thought I was a nerd or whatever. And that was it, man,
Sydnee's such a nerd as we sit in our parents' basement eating Doritos.
Well, they're teenagers, that's what everybody did.
What we do.
That's what everybody did in the 90s. We hung out in our parents' basement and we ate Doritos. But that's
Surge.
not, as much as that might bother you, there's no, that's just it. Those things happen.
There's no evidence of it. You don't have to look at it.
And you don't have to hear about it from anybody else necessarily, especially not, third-party bystanders standards who happen to see it on Twitter or whatever, Instagram, or I don't know, wherever you guys talk, and see it and then want to come tell you about it later, you know?
I didn't really hang out with a lot of friends this summer. I was doing summer theater, and I didn't really do anything outside of with all my theater friends. And I hung out with some school friends, like, towards the end of the summer, and they said, I couldn't believe what she posted about you on her spam account. And I said, I'm sorry, what? Like, what did she post about me? I don't know her. I've never had a conversation with her. And she came and saw the theater production I was in. And I don't know if have we talked about spam Instagram accounts on here before?
I was about to ask you. I want to know what happened, but I also want to know what a spam account is.
A spam account, or a Finsta, a fake Instagram, is like a second Instagram account people have where they don't really care as much about what they post. They'll post multiple times a day. You don't have as many followers. You only let people follow you that you know personally, and you can post like personal stuff. Kind of like a space to like rant and post pictures you wouldn't post on regular Instagram.
Okay.
And you keep it private. You don't let people you don't know follow you. I don't have one, so I didn't see it. And I wouldn't have followed her anyways because I don't know her.
Right.
And she came and saw the show I was in and took a picture of the stage and posted it and said she was there watching the talentless B-word that she effing hates. But I was told about that later, and I was just sitting there thinking, like, this was a month ago, and I had no idea. And there are comments on this picture, like, asking who it is and asking what happened, and people asking about me, and I don't even know them, and people talking about me, and I don't even know them, and someone sitting out there watching me who I don't even know talking about how much they hate me. And I was like, I didn't really care that much because, again, I don't know these people. I was like, okay, whatever. I'd never have to interact with these people ever again, so I don't really care. But still, the fact that it existed, and I didn't know it did.
Well, I mean,
that's terrible.
Riley,
I hate to hear that, Riley. I'm sorry.
I hate that. But okay. as a outside of being a teenager, as a person on the internet, don't you feel like that's something that, I don't know, I mean, it just kind of like, that's like, because I didn't have that obviously as a teenager, and as an adult I have adult friends. We didn't grow up acting socially that way, so it's not like even when my adult friends are angry at me, they're not going to, we don't know what Finstagrams are.
Yeah.
But so my only point of reference is like, as a person on the internet, that's just like par for the course, where like somebody decides they don't like you, so they decide to talk about it. And it's like, you have time for this? Like, I have enough time trying to like take care of my stuff. How do you have time to attack my stuff? Like,
Yeah.
Well, and I think the problem is in high school, like, you know, even if you're at the point where you know logically, this doesn't matter. None of it, you know, like, people have moved on. Nobody cares about it now. That mattered for all of 5 minutes, and then everybody got distracted by, you know, I don't know. What hot young star are you all into now?
Cole Sprouse.
Okay. Everybody got distracted by Cole Sprouse, and that was the end of it. Even if you know that logically, it's hard to take that in and not let it affect you emotionally as an adult, let alone when you're a teenager and you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're about and what you're going to do and what you want to be. And, you know, I just think that's so much harder to like rationalize and move on from. I mean, I don't do it well all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think it's, Riley, a mantra that took me a long time to figure out in my life, and a lot of pain, and a lot of like self-imposed pain specifically, is something that saves me a lot of the times these days. And you need to remember this. It's that generally there are two kinds of people in the world, and usually statements that start that way are dumb, but just hear me out. They're the kind of people that try to like push themselves up to get to where they want to be, and they're the kind of people that want to shove other people down. And unfortunately, there will always be those latter kind of people, and their opinions of you, the things they say about you, are they offer you nothing. It's, you try to be the first kind and try to ignore the second kind, and that is really just the only coping mechanism I can offer you.
Yeah.
And if you can succeed in doing that half the time, you're doing better than most of us. So,
because that's like the amount that will come at you, and I hate this for you, but it's the nature of your generation on social media. Like, there's no way to protect yourself. I feel like that's not cutting off from society and being a hermit person. So you just have to be so much better at that than we ever had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, social media is like constantly being in front of an audience. Like, I know when we do shows in front of audiences, I think about what I say a lot more just because I can hear responses to them. And on social media, you see responses to what you say. You hear people talking about what you say. You're constantly in front of thousands of people you don't know, people who don't know you, people you've never met before and will never meet. And you have to think about everything you say and do and can't just be yourself because you're constantly under someone's watch and someone's constantly judging you, even if it's something totally benign that you think no one could ever say anything about. Someone is constantly judging everything you're doing. And I think developing that sense of self and ability to be able to let things go and not care about people you don't know and not care about relationships that aren't good for you and be able to find yourself and let go of the bad is something that's really hard to do as a teenager, but also probably more important to do as a teenager than sometimes when you're an adult.
No, you're exactly right. Like, knowing yourself and knowing who you are is so important. Like, there was one comment somewhere on the internet when I first joined the podcast where someone said that they didn't like me because they reminded me of the kid that ran around quoting Naruto in high school. And which is great, yeah. And I was massively offended, and this is adult Taylor, massively offended because I thought I had way cooler taste in anime in high school. But the fact is, that is exactly who I was. And so now, as an adult looking back, I'm like, you know what? That is fine. You are correct about me. You have judged me accurately. If you do not like this, that is also fine. That me. And that's 31 years to be able to say that. If you can say that now, like, good on you.
You're ahead of the curve.
Way ahead.
Well, I think that this has been very helpful to you, Riley.
I do too, Sydnee.
No, Sydney, I think what we figured out is Riley's way better at dealing with moving on than either of us ever will or have been.
Maybe there's the flip side. Maybe that's the benefit of social media. It makes your life that much harder, but you are sharpened.
This is true. It's true.
Well, thank you, sisters, for talking with me again this week. Thank you, all of our listeners, for listening to our show. Thank you to Maximum Fun, the network that we are so happy to be a part of. Check out MaximumFun.org for a lot of other wonderful podcasts. If you like our show and you want to talk about us, you can tweet about us at StillBuff or tweet at us at StillBuff, I guess. You can email us at stillbuffering@MaximumFun.org if you have questions, comments, suggestions, show topics, and anything like that. And thank you to the Novellas for our theme song, Baby You Change Your Mind.
This has been Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydnee McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
I am a teenager.
And I was too.
The Dead Pilot Society podcast brings you hilarious comedy pilots that were never made, featuring actors like Aubrey Plaza, Andy Richter, Paul F. Tompkins, John Hodgman, Adam Scott, Molly Shannon, Busy Phillips, Tom Lennon, Anna Camp, Laurie Metcalf, Felicia Day, Michael Ian Black, Adam Savage, Paul Scheer, Ben Schwartz, Skylar Aston, Mae Whitman, Josh Molina, Ben Feldman, Nicole Byer, Jason Ritter, Sarah Chalk, Steve Agee, Jane Levy, Allison Tolman, Danielle Nicolette, Casey Wilson, Anna Ortiz, Lorraine Newman, June Diane Raphael, Kieran Chipka, Ed Week, Zach Knight, and Carrie Kenny Silver, John Ross Bowie, Jamie Denbo, Janet Varney, Alessandra Torres, Summer, Ellie Morales, Matt Gordon, and many more. Listen at MaximumFun.org, iTunes, or wherever you download podcasts.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.